Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 86. My name is Victor Vasquez. Appreciate you joining me on another discussion, another episode where we're going to be breaking down a new film that we just got to check out in theaters and decide after one viewing, is it timeless? Is it something that I can add to my typical rotation of movies that I would try to enjoy? Just anything in that nature. Really excited to talk about this week's episode, but before I get into that, definitely go ahead and check out episode number 85. Me and my brother Omar actually did a very different type of episode. Instead of reviewing and talking and breaking down a new movie, we talked about a classic movie. We talked about Batman Mask of the Phantasm, another animated movie that came out in 1993. Really fun discussion. We talked for over an hour about this film and why we consider this timeless, breaking down different types of scenes that we enjoyed, as well as discussing some of the themes that just, even to this day, make it one of the best Batman interpretations that we've ever seen. So if you have the time, feel free to check it out on YouTube and on Spotify. Again, episode 85, really fun stuff. But let's go ahead and dive into this week's episode. This week, we're going to be covering the new film from DreamWorks that is directed by Chris Sanders, and it is called The Wild Robot. So, The Wild Robot, I ended up seeing a couple of trailers for it, and right off the bat, it just seemed like it was going to be a very emotional movie. And you could just tell that there was like this, again, it's a main character is a robot, and this robot is kind of dealing with different types of creatures, trying to help them out. And you can already tell, okay, this is going to be something of a tearjerker for most of the audience. And so that's kind of like the entire basis of what I got from the film just by looking at the trailers. And it got me hooked. It was a very interesting. At first, I thought it was going to be almost no talking, just kind of seeing a robot experience this entire new world. But after I started seeing a couple of more trailers, I started seeing more dialogue kind of being played out by the creatures as well as the robots. So, again, just initial thoughts of what I got from the trailer. But let's go ahead and dive in. We got to check it out on opening night. And I got to say that The Wild Robot was a great movie. Again, I was really expecting it to just kind of be very emotional, but it had a nice little mix of emotional moments. You had a lot of great character interactions. You got to have a lot of funny moments that made you laugh. And by the way, it was still very emotional. There was a lot of different parts that really kind of tugged at your heartstrings depending on, what specific characters were doing, but overall, the film was just so cool. It had a great story. It had beautiful colors. It had a strong theme. And again, the characters were all interesting, at least the main ones that the film wanted you to pay attention to. Speaking of characters, the main character that you're following throughout this film is named Roz. Roz is actually voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, and she's the main protagonist in this story. And the film kind of just revolves around her experience of this island that is basically inhabited by these different types of creatures. There's no humans that are shown at the beginning of the film. It's just all creatures and this one robot that's just trying to get accustomed to, trying to get used to this new island that she's experiencing. Now, Roz is a robot that's basically programmed to help out with different types of tasks that humans wouldn't really want to do anymore and just kind of makes life a little bit easier. And so her main purpose is to help as much as she can. And what she ends up finding out is that instead of helping out humans, she's actually going to be helping out a goose named Brightbill. Brightbill is voiced by Kit Connor, and she's not programmed to be a mother, but she ends up learning and reprogramming herself to eventually help Brightbill do three things. She has to help him eat, help him swim, and fly to prepare for migration. And so, again, you throughout the film, they face challenges. They go through a lot of ups and downs. She actually gets helped by a character named Fink, who is a fox, and this fox is actually voiced by Pedro Pascal. And between the two of them, they're able to help Bright Bill fly and do all these different types of items. But again, as you expect, and as most stories would go, there's a lot of challenges that go through them. They end up kind of having a lot of clashes as well. But apart from that, the story just unfolds very nicely, and I thought it was very charming. It had like a lot of great moments, and again, not too cheesy to the point of where it might get corny, but I had a lot of great moments just checking out wild robot. And like I mentioned, I laughed a good amount. There's a lot of good scenes by these characters with these just one-liners that were pretty funny, or just the situations that they were in. It was a lot of good stuff. But overall, I thought the movie was awesome, and I would highly recommend, if you're listening again, that was just really my overall thoughts. Didn't spoil anything yet, but just over that, I hope that this would push you to kind of check this out. This is really for all ages, for kids as well as for adults. I had a great time watching it, and if you have a chance, check it out at your local theater. All right, now that I kind of covered some of my overall thoughts at a very high level, I think this is a great opportunity to jump into some of my pros and cons. So, spoiler warning for anybody that has not seen The Wild Robot. Again, if you haven't seen it, feel free to jump out and then come back in, and feel free to kind of agree or disagree with some of my pros and cons as well. Make sure to put those down in the comments below. All right, let's dive into the first pro that I had about The Wild Robot. And the biggest one right when I left the theater was, I really appreciated that the film avoids typical tropes that you see for these types of movies. So what I mean by tropes is, in a lot of stories, whether you see them in action, in romance, in drama, whatever it might be, there's always tropes that end up coming into play. In this case, you have the kind of fish out of water, where you have a character go into a world that they've never experienced. They become a part of the community, and then they grow with that community. And then the climax is, there's something in their past that wants to kind of come back and pull them out of that world. And now they have to kind of fight to struggle and balance both sides. The first thing I can think of after kind of seeing the trailers and eventually watching the movie of a kind of film that deals with a fish out of water is like Avatar by James Cameron. You have Sully, who again is not, he's a human, but then he becomes a part of this clan. He becomes an avatar, and again, he has to grow with the community. And then at the end, the climax is he has to fight the humans that are trying to destroy Pandora. So that's like a typical use case of one of those types of movies. And you see that in a lot of different films. Again, I'm just throwing out Avatar as one of the prominent ones that I can think of. And I was really worried that this film was just going to follow the same types of trends and beats. And I was so happy that it did not do that. Now, again, it is still kind of similar feelings where, hey, you still have to protect these creatures, but it's in a different manner. In the film, there is a climax point where you have robots that are trying to come in and take Roz back to her, her home base. And again, they're not there to destroy the island. They're not there to destroy the creatures. They're just there to get Roz. And again, I appreciated that they didn't make the story revolve around, oh, we got to destroy this island. We got to destroy these creatures because they mean nothing to us as robots. I again appreciated that they didn't go down that route, and the writers just stuck to, hey, we're just focusing on Roz. They just want her experience and her programming to understand what went wrong with her. Why did she end up changing and having this entire different life experience than what most Roz robots actually go through? Another one of the cool tropes that they avoided in this film is, again, you have these situations where in these stories where somebody is joining a community, there's always something negative that ends up happening. And at the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, the reveal is like, maybe your intentions weren't very clear at the beginning, but now my intentions are different because I really love this community. And so I was so happy that they didn't just save this for the ultimate climax. They knocked this right out at the first act of the movie, and I really appreciated that. You have this interaction between Bright Bill and Roz, where as you see time go in the film, Roz actually becomes that position of a mother. She cares for Bright Bill. Bright Bill cares for her. And then it gets revealed that, well, the reason Bright Bill doesn't have a real mother and a family is because the night that Roz landed on the island, she actually ended up killing his family by accident. And that whole thing, again, you could totally see normal films doing that as the ultimate climax. And what they did here in The Wild Robot is they knocked it off in the first act. They got it right through. Hey, we don't need to have this be a main plot point of the film. No, we're just going to add this in the first act just so that there's conflict throughout the rest of the film. Really well done. And I'm really glad that they had that kind of thought process of not just making it fall in the same tropes as other films like this. So really well done to the director and to the writers of The Wild Robot for not falling into those traps of similar tropes that other films have. All right, second pro is the animation. But guys, I gotta say, this is probably one of the reasons why I really want to push folks to watch this is the animation is just on a whole nother level. There's just so many vibrant colors used throughout the movie. There's again colors that you just see all over the place. Again, it's an island. Every creature that you interact with has a different type of color. Roz is also highlighting herself in different colors depending on the emotions that she's feeling. And I think that what blows me away is the animation style. It looks almost like it's painted, hand drawn, and animated at the same time. So it just has a very unique kind of a style, and I really enjoyed that. I'm starting to notice my kind of preference for these types of animated films is I'm starting to look and gravitate more towards these animations where it doesn't have to be perfect. No offense to like Pixar and different types of Disney films where their animation is very clean, very crisp and perfect. Sometimes it's cool that it doesn't look perfect. It's cool to go away from that kind of a style and come up with an animation that maybe we haven't seen before. And so, really appreciated this piece of animation that they were able to build up for the world. And everything just looks so vibrant and alive. I freaking enjoyed it. So, that's my second pro. Just the cool, different animation that you're able to pull off. All right, third pro that I have here is the relationship between Roz, Brightbill, and Fink. These are basically the three main protagonists of the entire film. And I really appreciated that as soon as they get to know each other, everything just clicks. Everything that, their interactions, their dialogue, everything just makes sense. They have a lot of funny lines. And because of how easy they were able to have those kind of connections for the audience, it makes it much more enjoyable that you can actually connect with these characters, whether you like Roz, Bright Bill, or Fink. Every one of them has a different type of style. That each character is motivated by different things, but immediately you as you see time pass within the film, you connect with these characters. You see Roz that again at the beginning, her only job was to complete tasks, and eventually she starts. You can hear her kind of change in a way. She starts caring more for Bright Bill. And you could see Fink. Fink was a fox that had no friends. No other creature on the island wanted to have anything to do with him. And eventually you kind of see him wanting to be with Roz and Brightbill. He doesn't want to be alone. And all those types of elements that they were able to create just make it for a much more enjoyable experience as you get to see these relationships grow throughout the film. And eventually, again, you kind of see them all kind of close out at the end. But really well done. And again, a lot of emotion that kind of gets into play here. But again, that's part of the film. But I really enjoyed that aspect of the relationship between Fink, Brightbill, and Roz. Okay, moving on to some negatives. I only really have one. And the one con that I wanted to call out was there was a specific, and this, I want to make it clear. This is a total nitpick. I talked to my brother after we watched The Wild Robot. He completely disagreed with this one nitpick, but I got to call it out just because it kind of just it didn't bug me, but I just thought it was very weird. And the weird thing that I caught was that this film kind of revolves around creatures and robots. Humans are shown, but they're not really a part of this story. And so what was really looking forward to was how the score was going to play out, and the score was amazing. It was very majestic. I didn't include it as a pro, but I'll mention it here. That the music again just played a huge part, especially on those emotional moments and beats that were playing throughout the film. But here's where the nitpick comes in. There's a specific portion of the film where you have music being played and it's actual lyrics. So it's actually somebody singing in that specific part of a scene in The Wild Robot. And I actually thought that was kind of weird. I was like, well, there's no humans here. We're dealing with a robot and we're dealing with creatures. They don't have a kind of a concept of actual singing lyrics. And so to me, I thought that was kind of weird that they included a song with lyrics when the rest of the film, and it's all score. There is no actual theme song with lyrics. Everything else is just score. And it was beautiful. But for this one scene, they, for some reason, it had the idea of including lyrics. And I kind of just, at least for me, it was like, we didn't need that. This could be eliminated. This film does not need humans in the way of like singing songs. And again, it's not somebody actually singing it. The characters don't know that the song is playing. It's just more for the audience. But I just feel like it wasn't necessary. Once again, total nitpick. It is, I know it's something so dumb. I'm definitely in the minority on this, but I just thought, like, hey, we're dealing with creatures, robots. We don't need singing songs. We have a beautiful score. Let's rely on that. Other than that, though, guys, that's really the only con I had. Everything else just hit for me. Everything was just such a cool experience, and I really enjoyed all of what the Wild Robot was trying to offer. Now, before we kind of wrap up and kind of talk about the timeless aspects of this movie, let's go ahead and jump into some of my favorite items of this film, favorite performance, favorite moment, and favorite shot. Let's start off with favorite performance. I gotta go with Lupita Nyong'o as Roz. She does an incredible job as this character because, again, Roz is a robot. Her one job is to do tasks and help people and complete those tasks. But what you notice about Lupita Nyong'o's character and her voice within the film is as she progresses, as time goes on, as she gets more familiar with her environment on this island, she actually starts talking less robotic. At the beginning, her voice again is just very much like a robot. Very simple, very straight, straight to the point, nothing too crazy in her vocabulary. But as you go through the film and then when you get to the end, she's just talking normal. She's talking like a normal conversation, and she has much more emotion in the way that she speaks. So I thought that was very cool and a nice touch by Lupita Nyong'o and the team that created the Wild Robot to kind of show that evolution of, hey, her programming might be very simple, but she's able to actually reprogram herself and learn. And so I thought that was very well done. Favorite moment of the Wild Robot has to be when Roz is watching Bright Bill migrate. This is one of those emotional moments. And what makes this much more emotional is the music, the score. Like I mentioned, they didn't use any lyrics for these types of songs. They just showed Roz chasing after Bright Bill. She's very much hurt, or not hurt, but more so she's getting that feeling of, oh man, I really have to let him go. I really have to let him grow up and be his own goose, really. And there's a part where she's just running through the forest trying to capture the last image that she's going to get of Brightbale because for a while after he migrates, she's not going to be able to see him maybe ever. And so that scene is just, it's so emotional. And well, again, what makes it so cool is that there's a point where the goose actually circle around and it's actually the leader of the goose who actually goes through and says, hey, let's go ahead and circle just so that Roz can see Bright Bill one more time. And that was so, man, it got me a little bit. It got me a little teary eyed, but it was such a well done scene and it was executed perfectly. So that was my favorite moment. And then favorite shot, I'm gonna go with the shot where Roz actually lights up a different color than she's normally been lighting up. This actually happens very beginning of the film, and it's when she meets Bright Bill. Bright Bill's following her. Bright Bill's just a baby, and then at one point, Bright Bill kind of puts his forehead right on the head of Roz, and you just see Roz light up entirely. Her whole body lights up with these different colors that appear. And that was a really cool shot because, again, that was the first time that Roz was lighting up a different color other than red and blue, I believe. And you just see her light up yellow, pink, purple, all these different colors. And it was just such a cool shot. You kind of get this perspective of, her holding Bright Bill in her hand, both of them forehead to forehead. You just see them light up the entire screen. So that was a really cool shot. And I thought it was such a well done image for the film. All right. So those are all my favorite stuff about the movie. Let's go ahead and dive into whether I consider The Wild Robot timeless. I've talked all this good stuff about this movie, and I have really been debating this since I left the theater. It is so tough. The last couple of movies have really had me on the fence whether I would consider them timeless, and I'm actually going to decide that The Wild Robot is not a timeless movie for me today. I want to make that clear. Today, I've like I mentioned a little bit before, I've been going back and forth, and this movie has a lot of great things. The animation is something that I can definitely see myself looking at again and picking up things that maybe I didn't pick up the first time. It's just so vibrant, so colorful. It just looks like an amazing piece of art. But, compared to other animations that I've seen in the past, I don't know if I would put it up over Toy Story or Toy Story 2 or 3. I don't know if I would put it up against Shrek or Cars or The Lion King. Animated movies like that, where there's just other elements that I enjoy as a part of those experiences. This was such a fun time in the theater. When I left it, I was just super pumped. I was like, wow, this is such a great movie. And again, I'm not taking anything away from it. I would still recommend it to friends. I would still recommend it to family members, folks that are really interested in watching something animated, something different that isn't Disney. I'm definitely going to point them to The Wild Robot. But if I really think about it, from a perspective of, timeless and my rotation of movies that I typically rewatch year over year or every other year, I'll give you some examples. Movies like The Dark Knight or the Dark Knight trilogy, different types of films like Inception or Interstellar, even some of the Marvel movies. Those are movies that just kind of pique my curiosity, and I love rewatching those to kind of pick up different details that I didn't catch the first time. I feel like for The Wild Robot, there wasn't a lot of things that I missed, right? Like there wasn't details of like, oh, I didn't catch this or I didn't catch that. It was more so of a cool and simple, straightforward story that I was able to pick up. The emotional moments hit for me. I connected with them. I laughed at a lot of different jokes. So going back, it wouldn't be like, oh man, I can't wait to see this or this. I kind of already felt that the first time. And I don't know if it would hit the same watching it a second or third time. But once again, want to make it clear, as of today, this is not a timeless movie for me, in my personal opinion. I can definitely see myself maybe rewatching it in a couple years and saying, you know what, I was totally wrong. Victor, this is a timeless movie. But those are my thoughts. Guys, what are your opinions and thoughts on The Wild Robot? Such a great time that I had watching this movie, but I want to hear from you. Did you have the same kind of experience watching this movie? Did you enjoy it as much as I did? What did you think about the animation? And let's have you guys answer the question. Is this movie timeless? Let me know down below in the comments. All right, everybody. Appreciate you guys listening all the way through. My name is Victor Vasquez. This has been episode number 86 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Make sure to check out next week's episode as we cover a new film and decide whether it is timeless after one viewing. All right, guys. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you guys later.